This is Yorktown, Virginia, in 1981. 200 autumns have softened these rolling meadows since the last great battle of our war for independence. Here, the silent cannons stand, where in October of 1781, the army of the newly united states besieged the British under Cornwallis and defeated them in the last great battle of the Revolution. Here, monuments preserve 2 centuries of memory of Lafayette and Washington and the spirit of victory. And here rise the ghosts of 12,000 new Americans. From Rhode Island and the Carolinas, from Delaware, Maryland and Georgia, from New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Connecticut and Massachusetts, once colonies, now states. Marching over 400 miles from the Hudson River in New York through the woodlands of Pennsylvania and on to the tidewaters of Virginia. In 100 colors they came, with their families, baggage, and their cannon. And with them, their French allies, 8,000 strong, men of the old world fighting for the new. Scouting parties from the well-entrenched British force brought word back to camp of unexpected numbers.
Shoot! Right!
But the proud redcoats and their Hessian mercenaries knew they couldn't be beaten by mere Yankee doodles gathering just out of reach of their guns. Americans determined to have their independence nonetheless, gathering now in a great encampment, preparing for a battle that would prove to be decisive after 6 years of seemingly endless war. On October 9th, that year of 1781, the siege began. For the opening American gun, it is said, General Washington himself touched match to powder. On the 14th of October, French and American parties stormed 2 British redoubts. The Americans were commanded by General Lafayette and were led by an eager young officer, Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Hamilton. Then the cannon moved up to point-blank range. Now there was no escape for the British. Their backs were to the water and Chesapeake Bay was blockaded by a French fleet. The bombardment went on for 8 days, shattering British fortifications with a fire so intense that redcoats and Hessians could not raise their heads above their parapets. On the 17th of October, the British sent up a drummer and raised a white flag calling for a parley. General Lafayette ordered his captain of artillery to cease firing, saying, "The play, sir, is over." Then, on October 19th, 1781, in a spectacle incredible to all who witnessed it, 7,000 of the finest troops the British could field, smartly turned out in new uniforms, came out of their ruined fortifications, laid down their muskets, and their drums, and their colors, and surrendered. The last great battle of the Revolution was over. The American Army's spirit of victory had begun. That night, the British mourned their incredible loss. And the Americans celebrated their overwhelming victory. Two centuries later, we celebrate again, remembering the sacrifice of those who fought, and remembering, too, that the independence we declared in July of 1776 was finally won here at Yorktown in October of 1781. Now, gathered here in October of 1981 are 60,000 celebrants. 6,000 contemporary troops, American and foreign, representatives of France, England, and West Germany. 4,500 Americans recreating the proud troops of 2 centuries past. And in keeping with the traditions of these troops of the past, 200 young Americans being sworn as soldiers of our country for the future. Many of these young recruits will join D Battery, 1st Battalion, 5th Field Artillery at Fort Riley, Kansas. This unit traces its lineage to the very battery commanded by Alexander Hamilton at the Siege of Yorktown. A tradition of pride and service links past and future. Representatives of armies 2 centuries apart rubbed shoulders, walked side by side, and each found the other fascinating. Americans from every part of the Union came. Tradesmen, doctors, factory workers and engineers, their wives and their children, volunteering their time and energy, living in the field as an 18th century army, the old marching side by side with the new. Representatives of our government identified Yorktown's key role in establishing our liberty.
Yorktown was not just a battle, it was a bridge between 2 great events, the Declaration of Independence and the United States Constitution. Yorktown is the last measure of tribute, wrung from a fledgling nation exhausted by 6 years of war, to keep the Declaration's pledge of lives, of fortunes, of sacred honor.
The regimental band of the Royal Welsh Fusiliers.
And representatives from Europe, whose forebears knew these fields from both sides of the conflict, came to honor the event.
The French Marine Band. The staff band of the German Armed Forces. The Commander-in-Chief's Guard, 3rd United States Infantry from Fort Myer, Virginia.
Not long after the Battle of Yorktown, Lafayette wrote home to France. Here, he said, humanity has won its battle. Liberty now has a country. We who have traveled here today, and I'm told we number more than 60,000, did not come just to admire the strategies, battlements, and trenches of a siege. We did not come to idealize human suffering. The wounds of this battle have long since healed. Our nations have matured, and bonds of friendship now exist between one-time enemies. Our revolution was won by and for all who cherish the timeless and universal rights of man.
Troops honoring 18th century units.
The 60,000 men, women, and children who came to celebrate the victory at Yorktown were rewarded with a sight whose like will not be seen for 100 years. 4,500 Americans recreating Revolutionary War units. Authentically uniformed, armed, and drilled, the greatest assemblage of 18th century troops since the 18th century. Their dedication to the traditions of our country, their spirit in honoring those they represent, their belief in the freedom that was won here 2 centuries ago reaffirm the words of Thomas Paine, written years before this final battle. We have the power to begin the world anew. The birthday of a new world is at hand.